Mine were not ugly. I love those shoes. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want. Yeah, I know. We know what you want. You want us to talk about the money, so here it is.
Oh my God!
And welcome back to the Closing Time Podcast. I am your host, Jimmy B, and with me we have the wonderful and lovely...
Hey, Annie-O.
And today we are going to talk about a juicy topic, commissions.
Money,
what we really make, what we really have to go through, and everything in between, because a lot of people think we make a lot more money than we really do.
Yeah, let's pull that curtain back real quick.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. This is going to be a good one. All right, so in this segment, we are going to talk about what we spent our first couple commission checks on.
Yep, this will be fun.
Ooh,
Mine's sweet. Like, I thought mine was very heartfelt and everything because obviously I had the kids and getting into this business during the short sales. I had to help like negotiate the short sales and actually be the agent, be the negotiator, like helping with title and all that stuff. And so it took 9 months for me to get that deal closed and everything, which was like really my first deal. And because of the timing it took and just trying to find the buyer, I had like this little thermometer on the fridge to like make sure that the kids knew what was going on and that mommy was trying to help close deals. And so every time like something happened in the transaction, I would just like mark another line. And the second we hit the top, I did the classic, like take them on a trip to Disney. And so that's what we did. That's what I said. Mine was like all super sweet, like, but it also took 9 months, which was not the fun part. But that's how I got their buy-in to be able to like at least see what was going on.
You know what's really interesting is I didn't know until just now that your very first closing was a short sale.
Yeah.
My very first closing was a short sale.
Really?
Yeah. And it took about a year and a half. I kid you not. It was a house for $75,000 at the time in Spring Hill.
No kidding.
Yeah. It was a pain. I was still working at Babies R Us at the time as a human resources supervisor, whatever title that was. And yeah, it just, I was trying to work it on the side. We're waiting on the bank. And short sales were a big thing. But I didn't really make a lot of money on that one. So that's not really what I was going to bring up on what I spent my commission on. I just found that interesting. But,
both short sales.
So I would say mine's very different from yours.
Why?
Well, I want to talk about more of my bigger checks. So one of my, I would say in my first 10 transactions as an agent, one of my checks was one of my biggest ones to date, not the biggest, but pretty close. And I had closed at the time what I thought was an expensive property in Avila here in Tampa, and it was $1.2 million. And right now, that house is probably worth $3 or $4 million in today's market, because you're talking 2014, 15, somewhere in there. I don't even remember. But after brokerage splits, after team splits, and all that fun stuff, which we're going to get into in another segment on this show, I walked away with about $25,000. Now, mind you, when I was in retail management prior to being full-time in real estate, my salary as an assistant store manager was $42,500.
You made
for
half.
The entire year.
Right.
So I literally just made more than half of that. Now, what I decided to do with that money was splurge a little bit. Jimmy B has never made that much money in his life. So I remember I went to Wiregrass.
Okay.
Because I was living in Wesley Chapel at the time. And I went to the Prada store.
Really? There's a Prada store at Wiregrass?
Or maybe it was one of the department stores. Sorry, that has like Prada products.
Gotcha.
That probably makes more sense. Maybe it was Dillard's, Macy's. I don't remember one of those two. Anyway, I go in there and I end up buying a $550 pair of Prada sunglasses.
Sunglasses. That was your first big splurge.
Yes. That I never really took care of because they were sunglasses. And they, to this day, are somewhere probably in a landfill. I sat on them a couple times. I broke them. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to try to, like, get them fixed. Like,
good job.
I was being bougie, and they were cool at the time. But, you know, in hindsight, I probably would not have splurged on that.
That's really funny considering now when it comes to sunglasses, I literally buy the multi-pack colored ones from Amazon.
Yes.
Because I could care less about them. I know you do too. So it's like, hey, we just want something so we don't go blind when we're outside.
Yeah, I'm sure our viewers who are watching this, if you guys follow any of our other social media, you'll see in pictures we have like literally the $2 pair of sunglasses that we just get online. Because I lose my sunglasses all the time. I break my sunglasses all the time. And then other than that, I spent a lot of money and I racked up a lot of credit card bills with commissions, unfortunately, with food. I found this whole new lifestyle that I did not know existed because growing up, my father did not know how to cook steak. Like, just call a spade. Sorry, Dad, if you're watching this. Like, the man could not cook meat.
Yeah, I had to teach you.
I did not. It just didn't work for him. It's dry. It was overcooked. Okay, I'm going to stop bashing him right now. Sorry, Dad. But I had someone take me out. I don't remember who it was. It was another realtor. And they're like, oh, you should try like a fancy steak. And I'm like, steak sucks. I don't like steak. I grew up eating crappy rubbery steak that my dad made.
Yeah.
So take me to this steak restaurant and I spend, I don't know, $50, $60, $70 on a steak. You know, get a couple drinks because that's the realtor way, right? And with all the stress that we have to deal with. And, you know, had a couple dinners like that, and then I had a couple lunches like that, and then I would go out like during the day, and it was like money was no object because I'm making all these really big commissions, and it just racked up a lot of debt that I should not have had. So
it's funny how you went from spending the money that you were earning to all of a sudden spending the money that you didn't earn yet.
Yeah.
And what a slippery slope that becomes.
Right.
That is a very, very real thing.
Right. And I want to bring that up because, you know, I don't want other agents who are watching this to fall into that trap.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to splurges and everything, I would say like one of the biggest things that like, it was definitely a pause and it was a moment for me where I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend the money. And it's shoes because, you know, I love my shoes and my heels and everything. And it was Jimmy Choo shoes. And so it was a great pair of heels and everything. But this was like my first big spend on them. And this was back probably 2014, 2015. And the shoes I wanted were $900 at the time. At the time, $900. And I was like, okay, I could do this. Loved them, bought them. I still don't have them now because I wore them to, I'm like,
you wore them one time and that was it, right?
No, I wore them plenty of times, thank you. I actually wore them down and they were rough to the point where I'm like, all right, it's time to retire them kind of thing. So yeah, I got my wear out of them. But that was like that big splurge purchase where I was like, I'm going to do this. And it was always shoes. For some reason, purses, I can care less about. Like I have my good purses that are the staples and everything, but shoes, yeah, I was like, yeah, I want some red bottoms. Like those are the things I can see myself splurging. I've just been better about not splurging on those things.
Yeah, I would say probably the one smart thing that I spent I spent some of my commissions on was actually when I bought my first house.
Yeah.
So it was really cool.
Yeah.
And I'll try to get the rewarding story like you had. You know, I became a full-time realtor.
Yeah.
Like really trying full-time, no other distractions in 2014. And by the spring of 2016, so, you know, little more than 24 months later, I actually bought my first home on my own with no help.
Yeah.
And that was really cool because it really put me in a great financial position to where, you know, only like 2-3 years later, I was able to sell it and I made like a $60,000, $70,000 profit, which enabled me to upgrade and be in the home that we are living in today.
Yeah.
So,
right.
yeah, there's definitely some good, some bad, definitely
crazy,
some ugly things that I'm sure we've all done with our commission checks. Is there anything else that stands out to you that you spent any on?
Those would probably be the biggest ones, I'd say, that like memorable where I was like, I'm actually doing this. Other things, like it was always stupid things. Like I did love eating out a lot and just because it was like, oh, let's go have a dinner and let's like as a meeting. Right. You know, like those work meetings that were dinners and stuff that you would have drinks and it did get weird.
Networking meetings.
Of course. Yes, those. And it really got weird thinking that like you're forking over $100, $200 for yourself.
Yeah.
On a meal, you're like, wait a minute. Especially if you were doing that multiple times a week and seeing like how easily that racks up.
The Vegas seminars.
Yep.
They
Those
add
I
up
like.
too.
Those I like. I mean, it's Vegas. Like that's a whole different thing there.
Yeah.
Or any of the seminars really and stuff. And then like hotel stays because like I like quality hotels. So like I'm not staying at some like cheap little motels.
I also went through this bougie phase for like a couple of years where because I, was a realtor and I was making, decent commission checks, that I would have to fly first class.
Oh, yes.
And, you figure a regular plane ticket for, like, let's just say we were going to go to a Vegas, conference, because there's always an annual conference in Vegas for every single pretty much brokerage that has a decent name out there.
Yep.
And, Annie and I did like to fly out there. And at one point, I was like, okay, we're doing okay. We're going to fly first class from now on because that's what we should do. Our coach at the time was like, if you don't fly first class, you're a loser. And he kind of like embedded that in our head.
Yeah.
And I started doing that, and a regular round trip for the two of us would be like what, $600, $700, $800.
Yeah.
But for first class, I'm pretty sure the couple of times we did it was like $3,000.
Yeah, easy.
Now, was it comfortable on that 5-hour nonstop flight to Vegas?
Of course,
absolutely. But it was probably pretty stupid, and I probably wouldn't do that until.
Right.
I don't even know if I would do it again. It's not really necessary.
Well, the thing is, like, when you're looking at money and where you could really be putting it.
Right, and how you could really just grow your business more.
Exactly.
Do more automation, but that's all a whole other topic.
Yeah. And we'll definitely be getting into that as we go into some of the other ones. So, yeah, stay tuned.
Yeah, so that concludes this segment of what we spend our commission checks on, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mine were not ugly. I love those shoes. All right, so now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of our episode, which is, commission MythBusters. What are we really spending our money on versus, or not spending our money on, excuse me. What are we actually getting versus what, you as the consumer thinks we're actually getting paid. So, you talked about it earlier, like obviously the spending on some first class tickets, things like that. But I'd really want to say first and foremost, our commissions, like 100% is not going to us. Plain and simple.
Not even close.
Right. And then from that, like, yes, we have a brokerage, and then there's us. So there's definitely already splits involved that helps cover our errors and omissions insurance. And then we have to also take out our marketing. So a lot of people don't realize it, but everything when it comes to either helping a client buy a property or sell a property, we're upfronting that investment until somebody gets to a closing table. So I could have 4 clients that I am actively marketing their house. Well, it's up to me because a lot of these vendors that we use are, to actually have ads on Facebook, YouTube, Google, any of those platforms. Like I have to output all that money first and foremost with the hopes that, it closes so that way I can actually get that return back. So that goes into it. And I'd say from like a percentage kind of thing, it's almost like 40%. When you like really break down the total amount of investment, the marketing for the photos, the 3D video tour, things like that. That's all stuff that we have to pay because these vendors that we use, they're not doing like, oh, we'll let you have a credit or like a net 30 where you can pay it later kind of thing. They all demand their payment up front, regardless of what happens with the commission or if we actually sell it.
Yeah, for sure. And just to kind of give you guys some numbers because,
there you go.
This
Make
is
it real.
This is Jimmy B and Anio Uncensored. That's who we are.
Yep.
Just to kind of give you an example here. So we are currently a part of a team.
Yeah.
And our team has splits because our team provides training, tons of resources. It's pretty much all done for you. Your goal is to go out and find more business, and we pretty much help you take care of the back end, right?
Yeah.
But then we also have a broker that our team is underneath. We're not our own broker. Our actual broker right now is LPT Realty, which is the shirt I'm wearing right now. And the team we're currently on is Paramount Home Group. So there's 2 different things there. So LPT has fees that you have to pay into.
Yep.
And Paramount Home Group, because of what they provide, also has fees you have to pay into. So let me give you the dirty laundry here, right? So with LPT Realty, as a broker, you have 2 options. You can either give them $500 per file, so per closing, up to your 11th closing, and then you don't pay them anymore for that year, and then it resets in a year. And then they have another model where you're in an 80-20 split, where you keep 80, they keep 20, up to a cap of $15,000. So as those 20% add up, once you hit at $15,000, then for that calendar rolling year, you don't pay anything else.
Right.
I'm not going to get into the weeds on what the differences are between those, but that's option A. So let's just say it's the $500 one, right?
Yep.
Because that's what most of the agents in our brokerage go with. Okay. And then you have our team. Our team has splits and referral fees with some of the, big providers of leads like Zillow, Realtor.com, and that's just to name a few. And they take a nice chunk off the top. So full transparency, you guys can look it up anyway. Zillow generally takes about 40% of a realtor's commission on a lead they provide right off the top.
Yep.
Okay, so now let me break it down for you. Let's say a realtor is making, I'll use easy numbers for the sake of the show.
Go for it.
$10,000 is the gross commission.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start there. $10,000. So the average consumer thinks, okay, I'm paying this realtor $10,000 for barely doing anything, blah, blah, blah. This is getting all this money. This is crazy. And that's why everyone gets in the business, because they think it's a lot of money.
Yep.
So you start there. Now, the broker always gets paid first. They have to eat. So now you're taking out,
say the $500.
$500 right there. Okay. But before that, if it's a Zillow lead, right, Zillow wants it off the very, very top because they want to make sure that they're making every dollar they can.
Yep.
So 40% referral fee. So that's coming straight off the top. So that $10,000 literally just got cut down to $6,000.
Yep.
Okay. Now, if you're on a team, most teams beyond that referral fee will take a 50-50 split.
Yep.
Okay. So now that $6,000 just got reduced to $3,000.
Yep.
Now, LPT still has to take their cut of it, which is the $500. So now that $3,000 just turned into $2,500.
Yeah.
So realistically, that agent working that Zillow lead making a $10,000 gross commission is only seeing $2,500 in a check. But wait, there's more. That does not include taxes to Uncle Sam. Yep. Because we all have to deal with that.
Yep.
It does not include any other marketing that they do on their own.
Yep.
And it does not include, as realtors, we're licensed professionals and we have to pay fees every year. Yep. At bare minimum, we're hit for about $1,500 per year per agent in fees to join the National Association of Realtors because we're required to do that. We're required to be a part of a realtor board locally. Yep. And, the fees for both of those are about $600-$700 once a year for each. So add that, now you're at $1,500. Oh, right. We have a Supra key, which it's the name of the company, to open those fancy blue electronic lockboxes you guys see on doors sometimes that are secure. There's a fee for that per month. That's around $20 that we have to pay. Yep. So the down and dirty truth of it is, realistically, if that's your business model, now, if you're not on a team and you're a solo agent, it can be a little bit different. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, it can, but then you're really going into the nuts and the nuts and bolts, nuts and potatoes. That'd be a new one.
Meat and
potatoes. I like that, right?
Meat and potatoes.
Okay, so if you're a solo agent, all of a sudden there's a lot more that you're responsible for from a cost perspective because you need some kind of, they call it a CRM. It's just like your database management. What are you doing so that way you're cataloging and logging your communication, your clients, like how often you're processing them. There's also like some kind of electronic like document signing, which is something else that you would need to have covered, including all the marketing. Like how are you actually getting consumers to like find you? Are you just literally out there doing some sweat equity where you're door knocking and you're literally talking to every human being that way? Or are you putting money involved? Like you could be doing direct mail, which is, mailers, postcards, things like that. Obviously, we talked about Google Ads a little bit. Like, where's your money going? Because then, depending on how much, like the sky's the limit on what you could be spending for all these things. YouTube marketing is another one. So marketing yourself so that way people can find you. And then there's also different courses we can take on top of just our licensing to maintain it and get certifications and designations as well. So like being a certified home, selling consultant, being a designated buyer consultant, first-time home buyers for our 55 plus, seniors, advocates and stuff. These are all different courses and things, again, where we have to shell out of pocket to invest to get like all these special other designations as well.
Yeah, and then you're investing in when you're a solo agent, you're investing in yourself with training a lot of times too.
Absolutely.
We talked about earlier in the episode about Vegas, about how
the conferences.
going to different conferences. Well, you're not supposed to go to these conferences just to have a good time, right? You're supposed to go there to learn, stay on top of what's going on in the market, and grow.
Yeah.
But all the flights, the food,
hotel,
the ticket for the event.
Yeah, these aren't free.
You're talking a couple $1,000s per trip.
I think the general consensus is like from the consumer side of things, when you work for a company and you're employed, there's so much of this stuff that they are covering for you. Once you become a realtor, it's out of your pocket to do those things. So as an industry expert, like I have to go do those things because one, I care about making sure I'm delivering, great service and, knowledge to my clients. But that means I'm responsible for all those things. Like my training is on me. Where different companies you can go to and they're like, oh, here's our training course, here's this book, and they have it all built out for you. And that, guess what? We didn't even mention we're responsible for it too. Is our like insurances, health insurance, life insurance, like disability insurance, like all these other things that we have to pay for out of pocket, where a normal consumer, if you work for a company, like they provide you some kind of benefit package, compensation plan. Like we don't have unemployed benefits.
No medical insurance.
No, we don't have maternity leave.
Yeah.
If that was a case where you just get 6 weeks paid or, 8 weeks, whatever the case may be with some extra, so there's a lot that goes into it. So yes, it's rewarding. I do love, now I feel like we're bashing our own careers.
No. It's not bashing it.
Right.
It's,
I was like, I love this.
We know being 14, 15 years each in the industry, like what it takes and what the expectation of what we're going to make depending on how we're running our business at the time. For sure. And, really just, letting you, our audience, know, especially if you're not an agent and you're watching this, that we do not make and take home anywhere near what you guys think we do.
I think there's a big difference. The misconceptions, like what the profit is.
Right.
Like, not even saying like, we didn't even talk about our car maintenance or gas or anything else like that, but and then we say what we can actually afford to spend and like have for like our cars and our houses and how we maintain ourselves. So there's definitely way more that goes into it. These are just, the quick ones that we thought of. And, if you're a person who's even thinking about getting into real estate, a lot of people, we talk to them on the front end when they're just newly licensed, they don't have a lot of concept of all these things. So that's why we're giving it all to you. We're letting you all know.
Yeah. So, that is really the down and dirty details of commissions. And I gave you guys a good example of a breakdown of what we really make and what an agent on our team can really make. But at the end of the day, it really just depends on what you want and what your situation is, right?
Absolutely.
Being a part of our team, like Paramount Home Group, everything is done for you.
Yeah.
And, you can come in as an agent. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. We take care of all of it for you. But there is a lot of cost associated with that, right? So if you're looking to just jump right into real estate, with you hit the ground running and you don't have to worry about all that, that could be a good option for you. Or if you're a more experienced agent and you don't really need all that stuff, then, maybe just going solo may be the route for you as well. But either way, there are so many fees, there are so many costs involved.
And you got to wear a lot of hats too.
Yeah.
Well,
that's a
whole
I
was like, that's a whole different
thing.
That's
a whole nother rabbit hole. But that concludes this segment. The would you call it the meat and what?
I said the nuts and potatoes.
The nuts and potatoes part of our episode this month.
Yes.
Stay tuned. We're going to have this month's Coach's Corner, and we are going to be talking a little bit more about
being smart with your money as a realtor so you don't make the mistakes we did when we first started.
Yeah, money mindset, taxes, things that are very, very important. Otherwise, you might get in trouble, which I'm going to share with you what happened to me.
Now it's time for Coach's Corner, where you learn not to be a little real estate bitch.
All right, this segment, the Coach's Corner, for all you realtors out there, we're going to break it down and just give you the realist, avoid the mistakes we did. James is actually going to share his story about what happened when it comes to your commissions, how you should be spending it, reinvesting it, and just what that looks like. So go ahead.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to first tell you a very quick story because I'm a very transparent person, open book, and this Coach's Corner is really for you agents to do better, and I
Yes.
want you to learn from the mistakes that we have made in the past, so that you don't make those same mistakes. So, we talked about it earlier in this episode on things that we may have splurged a little bit on money on, sunglasses, first class flights, expensive dinners, things like that.
Shoes.
For you, shoes, and all that adds up. So what I ended up doing was, I'm a very confident person in myself and my abilities, and I always felt and feel like, whatever I need to get done, I'll get done.
Yeah.
I got a little overconfident in 2016, 2017 when I started making six figures plus for the first time consistently, in my life. And I racked up some massive credit card debt, just enjoying life, doing whatever I wanted because I'm this big shot realtor and I'm going to make all the money and pay it all off and blah, 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 blah. I was very irresponsible with my money, like calling a spade, it is what it is. I ended up having to file for bankruptcy. And it was a really big shot to my ego. Back in 2018-ish is when this occurred. Yeah. And I had to kind of restart from scratch because I did not take the time to really sit down and learn like what to do when you're making a decent amount of money. And on top of that, what it really takes to handle money when you're an entrepreneur and you're self-employed. A lot of agents get into this industry and they don't really realize that, and they don't treat it like a business. So some tips for you guys that I would recommend, and then, chime in back and forth, whatever you think too, is number one, and again, I am not an accountant. I'm not giving you guys like tax advice, but just from my experience.
Not legal advice.
Legal advice, tax advice, whatever. You definitely want to have some type of business entity in your name, whether it's an LLC. I think mine is set up as a professional association, a PA. So it's like James E. Boardman. That's my real name, not Jimmy B, but PA. But a lot of people have LLCs. Annie O and I have an LLC that we share together as well. Yeah. And what I learned was after the first year I made six figures, my accountant at the time told me, he pretty much called me an idiot and said, oh my God, you don't have a business set up. You're going to have to pay all the self-employment tax. Yep. And, that year in 2016, I grossed 130,000 but I couldn't write anything off because I didn't have it in a business name, I guess, or I couldn't write off as much.
Expenses.
I ended up having to owe the IRS like $45,000 out of that $130,000. So that really, really killed me. So having a business, an LLC, is something I highly, highly recommend. And then beyond that, and I know you've learned this as well, is one of the best strategies that you guys can do to really handle your money best. Obviously, I would always recommend talking to a financial advisor or planner because they're really going to be able to help you and guide you on what's the best way to do it. Yep. But a good rule of thumb is, and I don't remember exactly how it works, and you might, where you take your every commission check, okay, and you have your bank account set up, your business bank account and all that, but you have a certain percentage of each check get deposited into several different accounts, right? Yes. You have so much percent, let's say it's 30, and you're a single person, you don't have a lot of tax write-off. You have 30% of your check right off the top go to this account. Yep. So that you have your money ready for your taxes so you don't get in trouble. You have this much money going for your living expenses, your mortgage, your car payment, your car insurance, your food, your basic necessities. Yep. You have this bucket over here, which if you're a single agent realtor, you're not on the team, for your marketing. Yeah. Because you got to reinvest in your business, right?
That should be at least 10% of each commission check. Right. So that way you're building on the momentum that you already have.
If you are a spiritual person and you tithe, that's another potentially 10+% bucket that you got to put in. And then after you fill all these buckets, you'll realize there ain't that much left over for you just to mess around with.
Right.
But it's a good way for you to be more financially responsible as you get those big checks.
Oh, absolutely. I'd say that extra bucket, or like you said, that leftover and everything, that you need to create, that's your, I don't want to call it just this, but this is definitely what you want it for, the oh shit fund. because like we said, we have your living expenses, we have your taxes, which, I mean, that's not coming back to you, that's taxes. We have your marketing expenses, so you're going to be reinvesting that money into that, so now we're talking about just this little minute, section.
I would just say that's your savings.
Yeah, like it's your saving,
fund.
it's your oh shit fund. Now we're also talking about, if there's anything else that comes up, like you need to have a cushion for yourself, because the biggest thing I think where we both screwed up was that we always expected our income to keep coming up regardless of the market. Now, we've done a lot of amazing things to like have consistent income, but there have been certain dynamics and shifts that were way beyond our control. Like COVID happened to be one of those. And like now the market stalled 2 years ago with like the switch and everything, where we would go months without a paycheck because, the buyer activity, the seller activity, it just the dynamics of the market. And so having that extra fund, being able to like cash flow you and cover everything else you're doing, because that's the thing. That's what I had to learn the hard way was I was doing all this stuff. I was building my business. And then all of a sudden, as the market did a shift, all of a sudden I would need a 60-day buffer. And I was like, oh, I don't exactly have that right now designed. And then we'd get in the hole. And then when you're like, now you're spending money and you're digging yourself out. And like, that's where credit card debt would, accrue and things like that. So having that, emergency fund for yourself to float you for, I'd say bare minimum 90 days. Bare minimum. But then also you need this fund in case anything else comes up. What if you have a relative who's out of state? My family isn't all close by. And, if someone, God forbid, passes away and I want to go and, go to the funeral, like that's the money I'm going to be spending to do that. So that's kind of one of those things where we're just I'll just close another deal and get that money. And then you're like, no, you really do need to make sure like when you have the funds deposited, that you're allocating them appropriately for yourself, because that'll make your life so much easier, less stress. Like you'll be managing everything. We didn't even start talking about the other financial avenues in terms of like reinvestments between like life insurance policies, maybe even doing a Roth IRA for yourself. Investing in actual other real estate too, because I feel like every realtor should have a portfolio of properties as well, to help you get off of like the constant wheel of like just sales. So like all these things, wow, we can dive into a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, that'd be so much fun, like really going into this. But like just, okay, from the overview without the deep dive into each of these things, like please treat every commission check and like allocate those to the certain accounts. You got to pay your taxes, you got to pay your bills, you got to pay, put away a little emergency fund for yourself for reserves, and you have to actually be putting money into a reinvestment of your marketing. Regardless if you're on a team, if you're not on a team, like you are your brand, you are your own company, and you have to grow that. So it'd be stupid for you not to do those things. So those are the 4 basic ones. And then the 5th would be, like I said, the reinvestment into other stuff too.
You're very passionate about this.
Heck yeah, I am. Like this is a big deal, man.
Cool.
I learned. So yes. All right. That is a conclusion. What do you think? Were there any particular topics you felt like made sense, resonated with you in terms of like these accounts or like just kind of allocating? Have you made the same mistakes we have? Would love to get your thoughts and comments. So definitely comment and let us know.
Now it's time for Video of the Month. Who the heck picked this jingle? They don't pay me enough for this shit.
And in this month's Video of the Month, you get to see me, Jimmy B, yours truly, get in a fight with a kayak. Oh, my poor watch. Oh, God, this is heavy. Ugh. Ah, come to Papa. Dang it. Life of a realtor. So yeah, that was a fun one. Since that was mostly me, I would love for you to give the audience your reaction when you first saw that video. because you weren't there
No.
when I filmed it, and then I'll tell you how the filming went on it.
Yeah, like it was crazy. I was not there, so I had no idea any of that stuff happened. I thought you were just helping, promote our listing. And so to see this clip with you struggle, I was blown away, and I just kept thinking to myself, tell me you've never done water sports without telling me you've never done water sports. Because the struggle of you trying to flip that kayak, you weren't holding it in the right position. Like, I was like, oh man, this is rough. So rough.
So how this all actually happened was, we get to the house with the film crew.
Yeah.
And, we were going to be filming quite a few different scenes there that day. And right when I got to the house, the damn kayak was upside down in the pool.
Yeah.
So I had to get it out just so that we could shoot like the regular photo shoot.
Right, for sure.
And what ended up happening was, as you saw in the video, and what's funny is in that little short, that was like the third time I tried to pull it out of the pool.
There's multiples?
Oh, yeah. That was not easy. And what was even funnier is none of that was scripted. Like, I literally was grabbing the kayak, trying to pull it out, it would fall back in. Grab it out, fall back in. And the gentleman that was filming at the time was literally like, this is gold. Like, I'm just turning the camera on and just keep trying to get the kayak out of the pool.
Right.
So I literally, all of that was completely improv. And then even at the end, like, I'm shaking my head, like, all those emotions were raw and real because, like, I could not for the life of me get that damn kayak out of the pool. And I actually had to have both of the filming guys that were there with me afterward pull the kayak out of the pool and then put it back against the fence where it was.
I love that. I got to tell you, though, like that last defeat where you just kind of slowly watch the kayak going back into the water, it was just like laughing at you like, nope, sucker, not today.
Because that was like the third time I tried to pull it out. Meanwhile, there's people watching me.
Yeah.
There was like neighbors across the like the little intercoastal because it was right on the water on the Gulf. They were out sitting on the back porch just kind of laughing at me too, like as I'm trying to like pull it out.
You were entertaining.
So
that
then
was great.
After that third try, I was just like,
defeat.
I was like, F it, I give up, and I just let it go. And then the fact that it just squeaked back into the pool, that was just
it was slow timing.
It was meant to be. It was totally meant to be.
That was great.
That was a funny one.
But like seriously, why did you go like over by why weren't you by like the shallow side of the pool and dragging it out that way?
Because in the heat of the moment, I saw there was a kayak at the pool, and all I could think of was I need to get this damn kayak out of the pool. I didn't really think much further than that, as you could tell. That part you could tell for sure. But And believe it or not, I did have a vast experience in water sports. Thank you very much.
Well, it didn't look like it.
I just never had to actually pull a kayak out of a swimming pool before.
Or flip it.
Whatever. Tomato.
Oh my,
Nuts and potatoes, right?
Nuts and potatoes.
Nuts
there
and
you
potatoes.
Go. I'm telling you, that's going to be our phrase now.
All right, guys. Well, that concludes this video of the month for this month's episode of the Closing Time podcast with Jimmy B and Annie O.
Thank you so much for tuning in. See you next month.